All right, and we're back. This is Hook and Ladder. This is week 2. And, when yesterday started, we weren't thinking it was going to be that much to talk about today. Well, we were wrong.
Upset Saturday, first coach of the year getting fired. And when we did our video last Monday night, we were looking at the schedule for what were to be yesterday's games. And, yeah, we didn't think there was going to be a whole lot to talk about. Man, well, we were wrong, thankfully.
Yeah. Texas, let's just get right into it, almost pulled the upset of the century. Alabama versus Texas. Alabama wins late second field goal, 20-19.
Yeah, Texas should have won this game. And we watched it from our tailgate. It was almost as like it was a home game for Bama because there was some home cooking by the refs there. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really one to say that because, every team gets away with a lot of stuff. Yeah. But there was definitely some holds that weren't being called on Bama at extremely key times in the game for Alabama. Mm-hmm. But it was a good game. Texas came to play. I think I said it on this channel before last year that I expected Texas to be much better this year. I expect them to be contenders here in the next few years. They recruited pretty well last year. We've got the freshman kids now. Guys like Xavier Worthy, Bijan Robinson are definitely players, superstars in that conference. So they got some guys. They don't have all the parts yet. They don't have all the depth yet that Steve's going to end up building eventually. But, man, they came to play, held Bryce Young in check for pretty much four quarters with the exception of, I think, 2 drives in the fourth.
Had the backup quarterback in for Texas.
Yeah. Once again, Alabama plays Texas, and Alabama hurts the starting quarterback.
No, we're going to keep going.
So, Alabama hurts Texas the starting quarterback and changed the game right there. And, but it was a great game. It was fun. Low-scoring affair, but I definitely think, 21 penalties by Bama, the most in the Saban era. Completely uncharacteristic, but you can tell that Bama has some kinks in the armor. I'm not ready to go there yet. Mm-hmm. What some of the media guys are saying today, Alabama's not the Alabama Bowl. No, I disagree. They probably are. It's week 2, crazy environment, noon kickoff. I know that's a big thing in the Big 12 and the Big 10. That's not a huge thing in the SEC.
Had that been a 7:30 game, I don't see this game going like
I don't either. I think,
It's an early start for a big game like that.
Yeah, and, Texas punched him in the mouth early, and Bama took it. And it was, a hard-fought game first half and second half. I thought Texas made a lot of plays. Mm-hmm. Whenever they needed to, they made plays. But a good game. Got to give hats off to Texas. That was awesome.
Great game by Texas. Georgia knocks off Samford 33-0. Georgia scored all their points in the first half. They were tinkering a lot with offense. And
they moved the ball pretty much at will. They would get inside the red zone. And I know we were at the game. I mentioned to you. They'd get inside the red zone. It looked like they were trying to get cute with some play calls. And more specifically, it looked like they were trying to get certain players touchdowns. Like they were trying to force it into certain guys on the roster to get those guys on the stat sheet for a touchdown. Instead of going with, a better route. Stetson Bennett wasn't throwing to the open guy. He was forcing it into people. And it looked like they kept, first, second, third down on 2 different drives going to the same guys. Like, all right, we get it. You're trying to get him a touchdown. He's been great in practice. Maybe you want to get him some recognition. Yeah. They didn't look great, but it was easy for them. They just kind of rolled and did their thing. And
defense did what defense does.
Yeah, it's game 2. They're not, conference play starts for them next week. But I thought they could have played better. When you have some of these games, I really feel you need to beat these teams by 50, much like Michigan did in their game and a handful of other teams did against their cupcake opponents.
Right. Ohio State knocked off Arkansas State 45-12. Michigan knocked off Hawaii 56-10. Number 5, Clemson knocked off Furman 35-12.
Which I heard that didn't look as good as that score. Sure. Same story as last week against Georgia Tech. They put up, 40 points, and it didn't look that good for 40 points. Michigan, though, something to talk about. Michigan looks like J.J. McCarthy is going to be the guy going forward. Right. He played very, very well yesterday, albeit against Hawaii. Mm-hmm. Same team that Vanderbilt scored, 50 on. So, but, I kind of had heard on Friday that barring some ridiculous thing going on in the game yesterday, that this was kind of like the way they were going to get him to be or get to name him to be the starter. Mm-hmm. He's the guy going forward. I think McNamara's a good QB, good game manager, but J.J. McCarthy's one of those QBs that kind of change things, in your program. So hopefully big things are coming from Michigan.
Now, let's talk about Texas A&M and Appalachian State.
First upset of the day.
Yes. Well, was that the first upset?
I think so. I mean, that was an early game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't noon cook-off, and then Notre Dame was right behind them. So
Yeah.
carry on.
Either way.
Yeah. What a day for football, right? What did you say about that? I mean, Appalachian State, that's where game day's going next week.
Yeah, go to Boone, and I saw the videos on Twitter of the kids in Boone, like a bunch of kids coming from one side of the road, coming down the road, the other kids coming up the road, they meet, and they're all jumping up and down, and it kind of looked like, some pandemonium there in the streets of Boone. But good for them, They played well. They played well enough to beat North Carolina in that ridiculous shootout last week, and I kind of felt bad that they came up on the short end of the stick. I mean, you score 40 points in the fourth quarter and still lose. But Texas A&M, their first week of the season, last week, they didn't look good on offense. Couldn't get things rolling. They needed a special teams score. They needed a special teams score in this game as well to kind of make it look a little closer than it was. Jimbo Fisher, I'm going to go out and say that he cannot develop players. So he has a generational quarterback at Florida State. Great team, pretty much the entire team, entire starters, the 22 starters are played in the NFL. But Winston, your generational QB, they win a national championship against Auburn, who should have lost 3 games that year, and that was the kick 6 year where Alabama was undefeated and went and lost at Auburn the kick 6 game.
And then the week before, or 2 weeks before, they had the miracle.
They had the miracle, the prayer at Jordan Hare.
Right.
So they basically had to have 2 fluky miracle plays to get there. I really believe Alabama was the better team, and Alabama would have beat Florida State. But they go and play a team in Auburn back in the BCS era that should have had 3 losses on the season, and that's how Jimbo gets his national title. They've underwhelmed last year, 4 losses on the season.
They did beat Bama.
They did beat Bama, so let's give them credit there. The QB play was a little bit better last year, even though the guy playing wasn't the starter at the beginning of the season. He came in due to injury. He's now gone. I believe he's at Auburn now. And the kid that was starting last year is a starter this year, and he's not playing well. So they're looking to go to the transfer from LSU, Max Johnson, next week. But they signed the best ever recruiting class in the history of recruiting rankings. Thank you, NIL. Thank you, Texas A&M, deep pockets. Those oil dudes out there got a lot of money.
Making it rain.
They're paying these recruits, and they looked like crap yesterday. How long can this go on? Jimbo Fisher, like I said, generational QB at FSU. I think he's kind of being exposed now as not the greatest coach, not the greatest developer. You're Texas A&M, they're paying you millions of dollars to have Appalachian State there. They're paying Jimbo billions of dollars. You're paying your recruits millions of dollars. You got to be better than this. And I have no ill will towards Texas A&M, but I kind of am happy about this because of the fact we discussed it on this channel earlier in the year. The whole him and the Saban spat about NIL. I said it then, I'll say it again. Don't insult our intelligence. Everybody knows how you got that class. Just embrace it. You didn't break any rules. Now he looks like an idiot, and I think it's awesome. I hope they lose another 3-4 games this year.
And watch them beat Bama again.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great. Look, talk about doing the college football world a favor. Have your program implode, but beat Alabama.
It happens. Okay, Oklahoma beat Kent State 33-3. Here's another big upset of the day. Notre Dame versus Marshall. Notre Dame coming off that loss to Ohio State ends up bringing Marshall to town and loses 26-21.
Starting QB Buckner goes out with an injury, didn't look good. I didn't think Notre Dame was the number 5 team in the country to start the season. Breaking in a new QB, breaking in key guys on defense. They had to replace Kyle Hamilton at safety. Lost a couple wideouts. Lost a running back. Yes, Notre Dame. I don't look at them as like Ohio State. I don't look at them as Clemson or Alabama or Georgia. They don't recruit at that level, but it's really, really close.
Right.
But I always feel that Notre Dame has always given this like extra grace and bumped up in the rankings. And I'm kind of glad they lost last week. I'm glad they lost yesterday. Kind of take them down a peg because I don't think they're that good of a football team. You got a first-year head coach. They might be great going forward.
They may win 10 more games.
And Freeman might be an awesome coach, but I mean, they shouldn't rank number 5 in the country.
Well, so I was doing a little research on Marshall and some of the stuff people they've gotten on the transfer portal. This Kalen LeBourne at 163 yards rushing was a 5-star running back. I think was it Florida State or somewhere he was recruited. 5-star, ends up showing up on campus. They play Notre Dame and he goes off for 163 yards.
Yeah, transfer portal, helping some of these smaller schools. These are all Sun Belt teams. Appalachian State and Marshall are Sun Belt teams. Guys might not see playing time as early as they would like at some power school. They decide to transfer. They go to a Sun Belt team or a lesser conference team, and they are the superstar on the team. And he showed out yesterday.
Yes. And another, I guess you did this upset, Baylor BYU. This happened last night. I was in bed.
I watched most of this game late last night. I picked Baylor to win. BYU was out their best 2 wide receivers. I picked Baylor to win. Baylor's a pretty good team. Won the Big 12 last year, and they went to overtime, a couple overtimes, and ended up losing. But got to give credit to BYU. I mean, they were at home, but without the key guys, they stepped up and played a great game.
Absolutely. Moving right along, USC knocked off Stanford 41-28.
USC looks good. You hear what Kirk Herbstreit said?
What did he say?
That the Pac-12 isn't ready for this type of high-tempo offense.
Well, that sounds good for USC.
They're looking real good. He had to replace a lot of guys in the team. There was so many transfers, and he brought in a bunch of transfers. However, he brought in Mario Williams and Caleb Williams from Oklahoma. So they all already had that relationship with not just each other on the field, but with their coach as well. A little bit easier of a transition than just a normal transfer situation. They brought in, I can't pronounce that guy's name to save my life, the wide receiver for USC, Addison. Something from Pitt, and he's been going off. Got two more touchdowns yesterday. Him and Caleb Williams have a great relationship on the field. And that defense, I don't really know how good Stanford is. I don't think they're very good this year. They weren't very good last year. So defensively, they might be playing some easier teams, but that was basically the question mark on USC. I picked them to make the playoff, and they're looking good right now.
And you got to assume that Stanford tried to bring their A game against USC.
Yeah, Stanford. Yeah. I hope they lose every game.
Oklahoma State knocked off Arizona State 34-17. And here's the next big game of the day that happened on our way back home, and I caught the tail end of it.
Yeah.
The Kentucky-Florida game. 26-16. Kentucky got it done in the swamp.
Yeah, they were underdogs going into the swamp. I feel that obviously that happened this week after what Florida did with Utah, and Anthony Richardson had a big day rushing the football. Still hasn't thrown a touchdown pass. He's got a 2-point conversion, but not a touchdown pass. So Kentucky was looking without Rodriguez at running back. He's out with some kind of NCAA violation. I don't know what it is, but he's out for 3 games.
Cavassier Smoke. I love that name.
Smoke kicked ass. He smoked him. But Will Levis, earlier today, they were kind of how can Kentucky pull this upset? Will Levis has to put the team on his back and throw for 3 bills, a couple touchdowns. I don't think Will Levis is a great quarterback. And I know this morning, watching some highlights, they said, this is the game. Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, the NFL scouts are salivating over these quarterbacks. I don't see it with either one of them. Neither one of them are accurate. All right, so we were listening to it on the radio. And it was incomplete pass after incomplete pass. I started watching at home. He's overthrowing guys, underthrowing guys, missing guys. But they got it done. Thanks to Anthony Richardson's 2 interceptions, one of which was a really bad pick 6. But I got to give them credit. They fought. They were down. They were down by 6. Fought back. Took the lead. Stopped them on downs, went and kicked the field goal to kind of ice it towards the end there. Great win by Kentucky.
Yep, absolutely.
And they're in the driver's seat right now in the SEC East. This is a conference game. Georgia will have their conference game next week. But I'm looking at Kentucky thinking, hey, they could be a pretty good team in the SEC.
They can make some noise for sure.
Florida has a lot of work to do. I think in that environment, the fact that they couldn't win this game, I feel that there's a few more losses on their schedule this year.
They played big last week, but had a bit of letdown this week. Utah knocks off Southern Utah 73-7. Nothing really to speak of there.
Bounce back Saturday for them. Good for them.
Saturday,
They did what good teams should do against competition like Southern Utah.
Like everybody else in the country. Michigan State, 52-0 against Akron. Miami knocks off Southern Miss 30-7. Here's another big game of the day. Arkansas, 44-30, knocks off South Carolina. Spencer Rattler, yeah.
Tell you what, well, let's go back a little bit. Michigan State looked good.
Okay.
They looked like a solid football team again. They're playing Akron, but they did what you'd expect a team like them to do to a team like Akron. A lot of transfers on Mississippi State that are paying dividends right away. So they're looking to be probably, next to Michigan, the best team. Michigan. I'm thinking like Ohio State's here, and then you got Michigan and Michigan State. So it looks like they're the two kind of front runners that can give Ohio State trouble. Penn State looked a lot better yesterday. They got a new quarterback.
They got a big matchup next week.
Yes, but they looked a lot better. So that was it was good to see that the Big Ten, after seeing Wisconsin lose to, I forgot who they lost to. They lost to Washington State. So big upset. Wisconsin, Mertz thought they might take a step forward. They had a really good running back.
Is he a junior this year or senior?
He should be a junior, I think. So the Big Ten's kind of weird. That whole one conference took the Western side. I forgot what they named it, the Legends and Leaders. That Western side is ridiculous. They need to redo the conferences just to make it a little bit more even, because you're getting a Western champion that's got like 3 losses when you have, a couple of one-loss teams sitting at home.
Right.
Miami looked good against Southern Miss. They've got a big matchup next week. I believe they play Texas A&M next week.
Is it next week?
I think so, yeah. Arkansas looked good. Kind of struggled a little bit with Cincinnati. I thought they would take care of business last week against Cincinnati a little bit better than they did. But hey, Cincinnati's a good football team. Yeah. South Carolina is not. Spencer Rattler kind of looked like the Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma, threw a lot of nice balls, but Spencer Rattler can't be pressured without crying like a little girl, and they sacked him 6 times. So got to give hats off to Arkansas for pulling off that victory. I know probably Pittman enjoyed himself some cold beer after that one.
I'm sure he did. Tennessee knocks off Pitt 34-27 in overtime.
Tennessee's back. Saying it. They're not going to win anything this year, but they're back. I'm looking at them as a New Year's Bowl game type of team,
Maybe
10-2, 9-3, regular season type of team. They lost to Pitt last year rather. They go to Pitt. Pitt gets up on them. They make a couple of defensive plays, get back in the game. Then Pitt goes up on them again. They go back in the game. Then they take the lead. They kept fighting back. I watched this game this morning.
Okay.
I like how they fought back, being down 10-0, make a pick in the end zone when it could have been disastrous, going down 17-0, come back, score a touchdown. They look pretty good. I still don't think they have the defense. In fact, I know they don't have the defense to go up against teams like Georgia and Alabama, but if things fall the right way, they can give those two teams a run for their money and maybe upset one of them and have a really, really great season. I don't think they're SEC championship caliber, but they're definitely back on the radar, ranked number 24, and they'll just be ranked a little bit higher after beating the 17th ranked team in the country on the road.
Yeah, so great game for Tennessee. NC State knocked off Charleston Southern 55-3. Wisconsin, we just mentioned, lost to Washington State.
Probably the last time we're going to mention Wisconsin this season on this channel, unless they play like Michigan or Ohio State tough. Just really disappointed in Wisconsin. I thought they were going to be a lot better this year. Mertz, in his junior year, 4th year in the program. They've got that really good running back that he's just a sophomore, and then they shit the bed.
There's a game. West Virginia lost to Kansas last night, 55-42 in overtime.
Huge shootout. JT Daniels played pretty good, although he did throw the pick 6 that iced it in overtime. I don't think he's happy with that. He made that decision to go to West Virginia. His guys are dropping balls, and they're just, not that great. Yeah. Auburn struggled with San Jose State. There was some good games, like some sneaky good games at night last night, too.
LSU bounces back 65-17 over Southern, and then you got Nebraska.
Georgia Southern avoiding the upset.
Yes. They throw the ball now. They throw the ball.
They do, yeah. Somebody tweeted that today. Georgia Southern avoids the upset by coming back to beat Nebraska. So Scott Frost got fired today. Everybody thought he was going to get fired October 1st when that buyout gets cut in half. No, they're not waiting. They'll pay the money. He's out today. Nebraska, I tuned into this game, and Nebraska drove down the field and scored what I thought was going to be the game-winning touchdown. There was like a minute and change left. And they kick off to Georgia Southern, and Georgia Southern promptly, quick 10, 15-yard throws, just marches down the field in under a minute and scores the game-winning touchdown. And then Nebraska came all the way back and with like 30 seconds got into field goal range, and the pullback said this is a field goal. That dude missed a field goal, and his coach got fired today. They needed to win that game. That was a must-win.
You know, you see what happened to Scott Frost, and you feel bad for the guy because he goes home, he's going to be the head coach. And
his alma mater, where he was a legend.
And he just couldn't get it done.
Nope. It's not easy to win at Nebraska. It's not like it was before. Those Nebraska cornfield boys aren't coming in and playing offensive line like they were in the early 90s. They've got to branch out and find guys. And let's be honest, there's a lot of 3-star athletes in this country who are going to smaller schools and winning instead of going to schools like Nebraska. I know they get guys out of Florida, Georgia, Texas. They get guys at the other schools in those regions who really aren't recruiting. They're plan C guys. If they miss out on your 5 wide receivers, then they'll go to this guy. Nebraska picks those guys up. They've got players.
Right.
The problem with Nebraska, they were 5-21 in one-score games. Eventually, that's got to get flipped. So you lose big, you lose small.
Right.
You win small, you win big. Start winning small, win those one-score games, and Nebraska's not doing it. They don't have bad players. The quarterback's pretty darn good.
Yeah. You want to lose your job, lose the teams you're supposed to beat. I mean, that's the easiest. I mean, there's no reason why Nebraska's going to lose to Georgia Southern.
And I'm watching the game,
right?
And you can see Scott Frost on the sideline, and he just has that look. He's not cussing anybody out like I saw Gus Malzahn do on Friday night, cussing his players out, screaming at him, all mad. He's calm, but you can see it on his face. He knows, I'm done. The game ends. He takes his headset, gently lays it on the ground. He knows he did it the right way in terms of, class, losing with class, I guess, on the field. I don't like any of his press conferences where he kind of blames the players a little bit. But I like Scott Frost. He did a great job at UCF. Brought him the fake national title in 2017, which is still on the damn stadium from watching the game Friday night. I hope he goes somewhere and has success. I think he's a really good offensive mind. I think he can go to another Power 5 school and win. I just think it's really, really hard to win at Nebraska. And it shouldn't be that hard because he's in that division where, like I said, Northwestern's winning, going in 8-4. They're going to play Ohio State in the title game.
Well, you're watching those games like last season and early this season. It's like the quarterback play. It needs to be better.
And this year so far, it's been better for the most part compared to the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It couldn't really get a whole lot worse.
No. But, I don't know. I feel bad for the guy, but let's move on to next week's games unless there's anything else you want to discuss here.
No, I mean, Oregon bounced back, but, look, they're done. I don't think they're going to win 10 games. Mississippi State got a good win on the road against Arizona in Arizona. Arizona looks like a bad football team, but it looked like a lot of fun to go to a game there.
I imagine so. We would take a road trip.
I think Arizona State was like, if you're judging the two on, atmosphere and nightlife, Arizona State's obviously the better choice.
Right.
But Arizona looks still like a fun place to go to. Watch that game.
Virginia Tech knocked off Boston College.
Yeah.
So, bounce back.
TCU won, but I watched that. Mississippi State's a sneaky good football team. I don't think they're going to do a whole lot in the SEC West, but there's a fairly good chance they knock off somebody they're not supposed to knock off.
Mike Leach is a good coach.
He is. Will Rogers is a really good quarterback. He's not getting a lot of look in terms of one of the top quarterbacks in the conference, but he's a good player.
Let's move on to next week's games. Florida State plays Louisville Friday night.
Louisville got the win against UCF on Friday. Didn't look good at all doing it. Louisville's defense is pretty good offensively. Malik Cunningham, they kept talking about him on the telecast, he's this Lamar Jackson kind of guy. And I'm like, he's not anywhere near Lamar Jackson status. The dude can't throw the football all that well. but their defense held UCF. UCF's got playmakers in the skill positions. It'll be a good game. I expect Florida State to win this game. We talked about last week, Louisville's one of the teams utilizing NIL pretty good. So I'm wondering, how that's going to look if they don't start winning a bunch of games this year. So I'll be watching that one.
We'll see. Georgia takes on South Carolina at noon in Columbia.
First, I hate to say this is a test because I feel Oregon's a better football team, although Spencer Rattler, if time to throw, is a much better quarterback than Bo Nix is. It's noon kickoff, which is always dangerous. Last time Georgia and South Carolina had noon kickoff, South Carolina beat them. This is at South Carolina. I expect Georgia to take care of business, but it will be interesting to see how they handle their first conference opponent.
Let's see, Oklahoma, Nebraska at noon. Let's see if maybe Nebraska can kind of bounce back and do something.
No, Oklahoma's going to roll.
Okay, moving right along. Kentucky's got Youngstown State. Baylor's going to try to bounce back against Texas State at noon. Anything else popping out?
Not a ton of great games next week. I know,
You got Oregon, BYU at 3:30.
That's a pretty decent game. Penn State at Auburn. I expect Penn State to win this game, much like they did last year in Happy Valley. Auburn is not a good football team.
No.
But they've got some pretty good athletes at positions where you could see them utilizing some mismatches. I know that Penn State's got a couple of really young linebackers. I could see Tank Bigsby maybe having a good game catching the football. I just think Penn State's a better team. That quarterback they brought in yesterday, kid's like 6'5", like 250. He's huge. So I'll be interested in watching that game, checking it out.
Let's see, Appalachian State, they're taking on Troy at home, and that's where game day's going to be.
Game day's going to be there.
You can take it for $38. Let's see.
Not a lot of decent games next week. Kind of disappointing. You got one sort of decent one at each of the major time slots during the day.
Let's see what else we got here.
LSU, Mississippi State at 8 o'clock. Is that 6 o'clock? That should be pretty good.
Yeah. On ESPN for $28, you can get in the game.
Arkansas, they're playing a cupcake. Tennessee's playing Akron. That's a cupcake. And what we got at night here, Florida's playing South Florida. Doesn't really kind of stand out to me.
Clemson, Louisiana Tech, Texas, UT, San Antonio.
Ooh. There we go, right there. The game of the day. It was at 9 o'clock at night.
Ooh.
Number 13, Miami at number 24, Texas A&M. Miami's playing well.
Yeah, we'll see.
Texas A&M's not. Can they right the ship? That'd be a huge win for A&M if they can do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on the limb right now and say they don't. I say Miami takes them. They're just playing better football. They're playing complete football. All three phases.
When did Jimbo sign the contract? The big one. The big one was last year?
I think either 2 years ago or the first year he got the job.
Well,
if they lose to Miami, his seat's kind of warming up.
Getting hot.
You never keep a guy because of a recruiting class. That's a fool's errand. But they might do it because this year's recruiting class for A&M is pretty sick too. Again, they keep buying dudes.
You can get a ticket for $59 at Kyle Field for this game at 9 o'clock.
Five-star offensive lineman T.J. Shanahan, who just committed to A&M, made the comment, they've got everything going on over there, including losing 4 games a season.
Right. And the last game of the night will be Hawaii at Duquesne's. Duquesne's will be there at 12:59.
I won't be watching that one.
That'll end about 3 a.m.
Look, I'll probably be up watching football at that time. I'm not watching that game. I'll watch USC 10:30. I want to see USC in person and see what that defense looks like. Fresno State's not a bad football. I expect Fresno State to get the nod to join the Pac-12 when and if teams like USC bolt to go to the Big Ten. Fresno State's not a bad.
We're about to run out of room here. It's getting too hot.
So I'd like to see what USC can do offensive, defensively in person. So that's what I'll be watching. One decent game each time slot.
Okay. Sounds good. There's not a whole lot of big games. Well, you got a few interesting games. Nothing huge.
Miami A&M. Be checking out that game.
Yes, but this season we're working our way through the season now. So week 3 starts right now.
Yeah.
We'll catch you guys later.
See ya. Bye.